Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Behind the Blocks. I'm your host, Kaitlin Sandeno. Make sure to follow us on social media at Kaitlin Sandeno and at Wisp Sports. Before we hear from this week's awesome guest, a word from our sponsors. Dive into summer and enjoy it to the fullest. Cheer on your family Olympians and keep the members of your team diving, swimming, and just having summer fun with Highlands Earache Drops. Highlands wants to make sure your summer fun isn't ruined by ear pain. Highlands Earache Drops provide natural relief from pain, fever, irritability, and occasional sleeplessness associated with earaches. Highlands has been trusted by generations to provide safe, homeopathic medicines for everyone in your family. After you've been diagnosed by a physician, try Highlands homeopathic earache drops or tablets. Earache drops are available at CVS stores. To learn more, go to highlands.com/ear. That's HYLANDS. Highlands.com/ear. Claims are based on traditional homeopathic practice, not accepted medical evidence. Not FDA evaluated. Always read and follow label directions. Before we get started, here's a little bit about myself. My name is Kaitlin Sandeno Hogan, and I competed in the 2000 and the 2004 Olympic Games. I'm a former world and American record holder, world champion, and also recently an author of my very own book, Golden Glow, How Kaitlin Sandeno Achieved Gold in the Pool and in Life. Currently, I am the general manager of the DC Trident professional swim team that just got kicked off last season. I'm a motivational speaker, a coach, an MC, and I love giving back to the community, especially being the national spokesperson of the Jessie Reese Foundation, which is all about spreading hope, joy, and love to children fighting cancer. On this show, I'm excited to just highlight and celebrate the incredible women in our sport of swimming. I am absolutely thrilled to kick off my podcast with legendary coach Cyndi Gallagher. Cyndi was UCLA's women's swimming and diving head coach for 31 years, but spent a total of 38 years of head coach, assistant coach, and student athlete. A graduate of UCLA, Cyndi has had an impressive swimming career of her own before becoming one of the few coaches in the nation who coach at their alma mater. She set several school records as a Bruin, earned All-American honors, and was even recognized as the university's most valuable athlete. Not to mention, Cyndi was also a USA national team member. She competed at the Olympic trials in 1976 and 1980 and was a bronze medalist in the 800-meter freestyle at the 1978 World University Games in Mexico City. As a coach at UCLA, Cyndi produced 11 Olympians, 21 Pac-12 champs, and 91 All-Americans. Cyndi was one of only 3 female head coaches of Division I top 25 schools nationwide. Currently, Cyndi is the head coach for DC Trident, one of 10 teams in the ISL Swim League, the first professional swimming league that kicked off last season. Cyndi, welcome to my first episode of Behind the Blocks.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Oh, Cyndi, it's such a blast to connect with you. We have such an interesting history as a Trojan myself, always going against the Bruins, crosstown rivals, and now here we are together with DC Trident, breaking some barriers, expanding the sport. It's so cool to come full circle with this, what I call very small swimming world.
No kidding. I always remember you as just being a fantastic athlete, full of Trojan pride, and just getting your team fired up to swim against the Bruins. And I was so happy when you finally graduated. I didn't have to face you anymore, but it was really, really fun to be on your team. And the fact that, when you called me to ask me if I wanted to be your head coach of DC Trident, I was like, I'm a Bruin, right?
Yeah.
But I'm glad we kind of put that behind us, and just the love of the sport and our friendship kind of trumps everything.
Absolutely. So we're making reference to DC Trident. So DC Trident is part of the ISL, the International Swimming League, which kicked off last season. Something pretty iconic and special for our sport, really trying to grow the professional side of swimming, which, as we're familiar with, doesn't really exist. Cyndi was the head coach of an all-female staff, which is pretty iconic in itself, especially for a co-ed team. Now, what was that like for you being, predominantly a college coach and then coming into what is quote unquote the first ever professional swim league, not only coaching professional athletes, but also having professional men athletes? What was that experience like for you?
It was really great. I had just retired from UCLA after, being at UCLA forever. And it was a really gut-wrenching decision for me to retire from coaching because I still loved it. I love the sport. And so when I was offered this opportunity by you, I jumped at it because I love the sport and competition. And I really enjoyed, we used to have a men's team at UCLA, which was fun. And we never trained with them. We were a separate program, but it was fun just, being around men swimmers. It's part of our culture. We grow up with men,
right.
Boys, and the girls swim together. So being a part of that, and then just, you learn so much from athletes, and being there with other athletes from other countries and men and women together. It was so different because it was all professional athletes. I wasn't really responsible for their training. I didn't, I just was there to, lead them and cheer them on. And, but they pretty much knew what they were doing. They're highly motivated athletes. And it was actually really fun to coach men to be surrounded by men. It made it, kind of complete for me that I got a little bit of that too in my coaching.
Absolutely. So Cyndi, you've been in this sport for, over probably 40 years. How have you seen the sport evolve? I mean, we kind of touched base on the professional swimming aspect right now, but what is it that really sticks out in your mind that's really evolved over these last, generations?
Swimmers still swim really hard. They train hard. They do everything, hard. But I think there's more focus. And so, I know when I was coaching, instead of having 2.5 hour practices, it'd be an hour and a half or 2 hour practices. And it was just, you kind of get it all in, and you work a little harder and you rest a little more. So there's more recovery. Definitely being in great shape, great physical shape. I mean, we did a lot of running and spinning and yoga, Pilates, all of that was, I never did that when I swam. I just swam, weights was something that women really didn't do that much of when I swam. And that's a big part of it, for your speed and for your fitness, and so you don't get injured. And, technique, that's always evolving. So if you can just continue to learn about technique and how to reduce drag, that's always important, but that's totally changed. I mean, when I swam, we had different suits. Some of us didn't have caps or goggles. That's a long time ago. But really the biggest thing that's evolved is, the mental side. And having a sports psychologist being on staff and having that really separates the good from the great. And it really helps everyone, the coaches included, because they need to have that too.
Right.
So, the mental side, I never really talked about or thought about my self-talk. And so we did a lot of that at UCLA. Your thoughts determine your future. And you can have a choice of positive thoughts or negative thoughts. And you have to script those thoughts into positive and have affirmations. And, that's really important in swimming, and getting up in the morning and being grateful, and talk about what you're grateful for and have an attitude of gratefulness, and then have your positive affirmations, and then also learn how to quiet the noise.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that's really what has changed, the mental side, being more available and mainstream instead of just, not talked about this sports psychology part.
Right. I love that you bring up the mental side of it. And it really leads to what I wanted to talk to you about next. We're in this very challenging, uncertain time with, the quarantine and the lockdown. And, it's a very roller coaster for these athletes out there that were, thinking that they were going to go to their NC2As and that's canceled. And they think they're going to prep for the Olympic trials because the Olympics are postponed, and then trials are postponed. If you were still coaching at UCLA, what would you be advising your Bruin athletes to do in this time of quote unquote lockdown?
Yeah, the great pause. We had a little bit of this in 1980 when they canceled the Olympics.
Right.
So that I had a little bit of the experience of having to change your mindset, and I feel terrible for the athletes, especially the seniors. The kids were ready to go and ready to break records and be with their team and have all the celebrations you have at the end of your career, and it just came to a screeching halt. And then there are kids that, do they swim another year or do they go out and try to get a job? Well, no one can really get a job right now. So, I would tell them, there's a lot of unknowns, and I know that's scary. You don't know when you're going to swim, when you can train. And, some families are losing jobs, and that's really scary. So, what I tell them all the time, focus on what you can control and let go of the uncontrollables. Just, and do the best you can every day and get a new routine, get new habits, develop new good habits, and connect with family and friends. And that's really something that I've done a lot with all these Zoom meetings is, yesterday I connected with a group of alumni, one was in Hong Kong, one was in Denmark, all over. And it was awesome. And I never would have done that if it hadn't been everyone sitting around not doing anything. So, just really invest in yourself, learn more about yourself and invest in others to make, when you do come back, you can know your teammates better. And the coaches get to do that too. They get to know the kids better. You never spend this much time talking on the phone or with kids, because you're always like coaches, you're always like making up the practice and recruiting. And so this is really a good time to get to know your team better. And also what's really important is to recover, sleep for coaches and for athletes. They never get enough of that. Mm-hmm. So, it's the first time you don't have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and jump in the pool, but, get your habits going and learn something. There's so many things to learn from all these master classes and all these podcasts you can listen to, and you can improve yourself and, do something that you don't normally do, like maybe yoga or meditation, and get a new skill.
Right. And I think that's interesting too, because you had touched on how the sports evolved more of the out of the water side of, the sport, the yoga, the Pilates, the weight training, which a lot of these athletes, you're seeing videos of them getting after it on land. So I think right now they could really take this time to improve their dry land activities, let it be, in your house or in your front yard or wherever your safe zone is, and I think for us, Cyndi and I have been looking at our DC Trident athletes and seeing them putting in the work outside the pool. I mean, that motivates me, and I'm not even training. So I think it's a perfect opportunity, like you said, to work on yourself. But then, there are still some activities to enhance what is, lacking what you think in the water, but you can be doing so much more on land.
Right. And then you're never going to have this opportunity again to do nothing. You can't do anything. You're staying at home, at least, where you are in California. And so you'll never have this again. So you have to kind of turn it around in your head like, okay, this is never again. You never have enough time to do everything you want to do. And here's your time. So, just really focus on what you can control. And for, leaders out there, captains or people that want to help their team get better, I love looking at all those dry land things that people are doing.
Yeah,
it does
absolutely.
inspire you, and that's how you can inspire yourself and inspire your teammates and help everyone around you get better.
Excellent. Yeah, I totally agree. Cyndi, I feel like some priceless kind of little nuggets of knowledge would be for our student athletes in high school listening right now. What is it that college coaches look for when they're recruiting to bring into, their next class? Like, what is it as a head coach? What were some attributes that were really important to you when you were recruiting for UCLA?
Well, you have to be a great student, and it has to be important to you, because, if you have to focus on the most important thing, which is school, that's what you're going to school for. And you don't want to not focus on it, because then you're going to be worried about it when you're swimming. So that for sure, school. And, having a joy of swimming and competing and, really loving the sport and loving the challenges of the sport. I think that's really important, because it's a grind. And for 4 years, it can be a grind, and you have to know within yourself, like, okay, this is hard right now, but I know it's going to make me better. So I look for people that not necessarily I would have loved to have you on our UCLA team. Olympian at 17,
Right.
but I look for kids that still have a lot of potential and have a lot of love for the sport, and that are leaders, that are positive, and really embrace, what are they going to bring to our team? Are they going to bring positivity and enthusiasm and leadership?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important, and just showing who you are to the coaches is really important. And that's why these, when you're recruiting now, you can do these Zoom calls recruiting, and you can really show off yourself and look people in the eye, and look coaches in the eye, and be grateful for the opportunity that these coaches are taking their time to talk with you. And also, look to see if it fits with you. If you've been a big fish in a small pond and you're going to go to UCLA or Stanford or USC, are you going to get lost? Is that what you want? Or do you want to, continue to be, you have to figure out what you want, because, everyone wants to go to Stanford, for instance. Not everyone can go to Stanford. There's only 20 athletes there. So you have to figure out where you're going to fit and where you're going to contribute, and how it's going to be best for you as well, and how you can contribute to the team. Because, you can't have 400 people on your team, although it seemed like sometimes I had 400 on my team. But, I really felt like, I was really excited on the kids that loved swimming and that loved to compete. And I got excited when they made junior nationals for the first time, or, that really fired me up, because they were so, like, I had a kid when I first started swimming, we'd be in practice, and she said, I just did my best time in workout. And like, she got everyone fired up. And just having that love for competing and being driven, that's important.
I really enjoy hearing that. It's really refreshing. And you touched on it, you're looking for athletes that are good leaders. As a head coach, what do you expect out of your leaders? What do you think makes a good leader?
Well, being authentic, and that's, when you're authentic, you have to know yourself, and that's really hard. I mean, you're always changing too,
Sure.
All through your life. And so that's something that you always have to try to work on, knowing yourself. But just being positive, being joyful, being compassionate, that's something really important. Empathetic and compassionate, putting yourself in others' shoes. And we did a lot of that by getting to know your teammates. If you don't know your teammate's story, it's hard. You can judge them quickly, and you don't want to judge them. You want to know their story. And when you know their story, you have to listen. You can't talk. And so being a good listener, being a good communicator, being resilient. But, one of our things is, make others around you better. And I really felt like our team at DC Trident really did that. Which was awesome. They just embraced that, and they would jump up and do anything to make the team score points. And, that's the kind of attitude that you have to have. And those are the great leaders. And there can be more than one leader. Just because you're a freshman doesn't mean you can't be a leader. You kind of don't know what's going on as a freshman, but you still can be open to suggestions and be positive and figure out how you're going to make it better, and find solutions, for sure. Find solutions and not complain. No energy vampires, as John Gordon has a great book, The Energy Bus. And, you have to always kind of put yourself in check, and coaches too, because, you can kind of get thrown down. You have 10 people complaining, and all of a sudden you go crazy on the whole team. And, you have to check yourself sometimes, like, right. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I know I heard a really great advice. I can't remember who it was from, because I listen to a lot of podcasts and talk to a lot of people, but they said, when you walk out of practice, ask yourself, would I have wanted to be coached by me today?
Oh,
and,
wow.
There's a lot of times when I walk out, I'm like, oh God, I sucked. I just, so you want to get better, and you always want to get better, but you're human. You have to give yourself that grace to say, okay, I can do better tomorrow. That's not my best self. Definitely having, coaches are humans, and we have to continue to get better and be better and lead our teams. And we're not always going to be great, but, kind of accepting that and just trying to come out every day and be the best that you can be.
Absolutely. Wow. That was really special. Thank you for sharing that. I literally got the goosebumps. That was so raw, and I've never really thought of that flip side, really asking yourself that question. What drew you to coaching in the first place? What made you gravitate towards that profession?
Well, I loved the sport. I loved
You can
competing.
tell.
Yeah, I know. I totally love it. And I love competing, and I loved racing. I always have. I was super competitive as a kid. And then, you'd watch people improve, even when you're swimming, and it was like a drug. It was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. They just improved. And, you can never let go of that. At least with me, I just really loved watching people improve and get better and become confident. And, it was for me, it was easy just to kind of go into being an assistant at UCLA, because I still really loved the team, and I was through with my eligibility, but I still had some more school to do. And so it was just easy and fun. And I loved, people. And it was really the relationships that kind of drew me in. And, I always thought I was going to be a teacher, and coaching is teaching. So it just it was a natural transition for me. So, yeah.
Did you face many challenges being in a profession that is predominantly occupied by men? I mean, you don't really hear of all too many female head coaches, and let alone in the sport of swimming.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when I started, there was, a handful
Sure.
of female coaches. But luckily, I was kind of naive. I got the job when I was 28. I had a 1-year-old. And I know, and I had been an assistant, and I'd been out for a season because I just, I couldn't really, as an assistant, I couldn't really, I wasn't getting paid very much. So I had to put my daughter into daycare, and I wasn't getting paid very much. So it was like I was paying to be an assistant coach, and that didn't really make sense. And so I took a season off, and then the head coach, one of my mentors, left, and the woman athletic director, at that time, Judy Holland, offered me the job. And I was like, are you kidding? Are you crazy? But I had some powerful people in my life, my parents, some of my swimmers, just say, go for it. This is UCLA. Like, this opportunity is not going to come again. So I just kind of jumped in, and you don't know what you don't know. So I just kind of jumped in, and I thought, well, I'm just going to go for it. And I really we were great that year. And I was so naive and raw and new, but, we did great. And I just I didn't really, a lot of the male coaches didn't talk to me because I didn't have relationships with them to begin with, because I was so young and I was an assistant. So it didn't bother me. I just kind of did my thing. And I never really, people would say, well, what is it like to be a female coach? I'm like, well, I've never been a male coach. So I don't really know. Yeah. So, I was a coach, and that was it. And so I never really looked at it. I never looked at it as a barrier. I wish there was more female coaches, and I have had some kids that I coached that are now coaches, which is pretty cool. One of them, Kate, was Rachel Stratton Mills, who swam for me, and then she coached with us on DC Trident, which was awesome. So that was kind of fun.
So what advice would you give women who are considering or that want to get into coaching? Because I do feel like the jobs tend to go to the males, and we've seen that. I mean, we've talked about this before. So what advice would you give?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's male athletic directors hiring male coaches, and male coaches are hiring male assistants because they're going to hire who they're comfortable with, and they know more males than females. And I mean, I would tell any coach. I don't think I would necessarily tell a woman something different than I would tell a male. So I would tell any new coach, let's see, what would I tell them?
Really put you on the spot.
I know. First of all, I think it's important to know your definition of success. That is really important, because your definition of success has to coincide with wherever you're working. And, mine was easy. I coached at UCLA, so I had Coach John Wooden's definition of success is that's what success comes from knowing you are do your best to become the best you are capable of becoming. And, I always wanted to win, but that wasn't really, you just do your best. And my advice would be to know what your definition of success is, and then know your values and share your values and bring them every day to your team. So, you as a coach, as a teacher, you're a developer of people, that's what you are. It's swimming is sometimes, that's what we're hired for, but I felt like swimming was kind of at the backside. It was really a developer of people. Your job is to help them grow and empower them and also do it with love. And so that's just, know your values, know your definition of success, understand that you're a developer of people. And one thing also that I learned from Sue Enquist, she was a coach at UCLA, and she learned this from Coach Wooden, is you can't only love the kids on good days. You must be with them when it gets tough. And I just was like, oh God, of course, everyone loves the winners, and you're feeling good, and right. I tell the swimmers the same thing with the sport. You can't just love it when you win and when you feel good, and you have to love the sport when it's tough and know that you're going to get through it and find a way to grow and become better. And that's actually with anything, you can't just, in relationships, oh, it's awesome and honeymoon stage, and then it gets tough, you're like bailing. No, you have to figure out how to get through it and how to grow and become better. So
that was really moving and motivational. I love it. I'm like, I want to coach. Wise words with Cyndi Gallagher. I just absolutely love it. This one might be a hard one for you, but I'm so curious to know, do you have a proudest moment in your coaching career? It might be. I would imagine that'd be tough.
Yeah, you always think, oh, it's the kid that made your first Olympic team, or when you won Pac-12s or Pac-10s back then, or whatever. But really, what it was when I was thinking about this, it was, and it always was, when I retired, I got so many letters. I got overwhelmed by kids. I'm coaching for a lot of years, and I got so many letters from coaches and from athletes that I coached, and telling me, this is the lesson I learned from you, or this is what you taught me. And that is really what the proudest moment I ever was. And whenever alumni would come back, and they'd always come back to the deck, which was so fun to have them come back, I'd always get the team out, and they would I'd say, okay, give them your words of wisdom, after leaving the sport for 1 year or 5 years or 20 years or 30 years. And, a couple of times I was nervous because these kids sometimes, we didn't see eye to eye, and I think, oh God, what are they going to say? But I was always really surprised that, well, not really surprised, but it was just awesome to hear that they had learned, I tried to emulate what Coach Wooden taught, and, they learned those lessons. And so for me to hear what they learned, and that really made me feel good that, I believed in them more than they believed in them. That's what your job is, to believe in them, and then try to get them to see their potential, and, empower them and inspire them. So I think that's probably my best, definitely my proudest moment, is knowing that I did affect positively a lot of athletes.
I'm just like sitting here smiling just because I've gotten to know you so much over the last, year. And it's like, this is just so you, and you're so positive, and you bring so much positivity to this sport. And what I love about you, which I think we're pretty similar, is that we know there's more to life than swimming. So we're all about the relationships and, creating good human beings. And it's just so refreshing to hear because, I feel like a lot of times when you're a successful coach, it's about winning and hard work and putting into cycles and et cetera, et cetera. But what I keep picking up on a common theme throughout our podcast today is that you always go back to the human being. It's not really back to the swimmer. And that's what it's just so, like I said, refreshing and moving, especially in today's state. It's, there is going to be life after swimming. And a lot of people, their swimming is on hold right now, and they're so used to that identity. But now's the time to, really work on what is life after swimming. So thank you for sharing those tidbits. I would like to conclude today, since the title of this podcast is Behind the Blocks. So for yours, it's going to be twofold. So did you have any superstitions or rituals that you did behind the blocks as a swimmer, and then put yourself like, okay, you're at Olympic trials and your star swimmer is behind the blocks. how is Cyndi, the coach, reacting as their swimmer is about to go off the block? So yours is twofold. As a swimmer, what were you like behind the blocks? And as a coach, what are you like as your swimmer's about to get on for a big race?
Oh my gosh, I have not swam in so long.
Come on, you remember the feeling.
I think, I can remember times when I was crying behind the blocks and I had to do a 1650, and I knew how much pain it was going to be and I wasn't prepared. But when you're your best, you're in the zone, and you're not, your mind is quiet and you're just in the zone, and you have no thought. I mean, the only thought is what you're doing now. You're so present. And we talked a lot about that, trying to get behind the block and having a ritual, like looking up at your parents and waving, or looking up at the American flag and being grateful that I live in America. That's what I would do as a athlete, and I still continue to do that as a coach. When we would, you always do the Star Spangled Banner. I'd sit there and that was my time to just like deep breath and just be grateful for the opportunity and to be at UCLA and to be competing. And so many people would love that opportunity. I before I would go out to swim meets, before as a coach, when there were some big intense swim meets, I would turn up. I love Bruce Springsteen, so I would turn the music up in my office, like full blast. This is like before I put headphones on, and I just would that kind of got me in the zone. I love loud music, and I love Bruce Springsteen, and so I would do that. That would just kind of fire me up as a coach, to have that energy. And then, then the Star Spangled Banner comes and I kind of bring it down. That would inspire me. And different kids like different things. So, Kim Vandenberg, a U.S. Olympian and bronze medalist, she was on your Olympic team. She always had the same thing. She always would come up to me and ask me, how do I swim the tuna fly? And she'd been doing that since she was like 8 years old, so, and I don't even know what I said, but I always did the same thing with her, work on your turns, do 5 dolphin kicks, put your head down, whatever it was just the routine for her. And that's what she did. And that's what made her confident. And then, but knowing that as a coach, what they like, I went up to one kid, before she swam her 800, and I went up to her and just to give her a high five behind the blocks, because there was a little bit of a time, something was going on, so we had a little bit of a break. They're trying to move out a touch pad or something, and I'm like, I freaked her out, and she came up to me afterward and said, "Okay, don't ever come and touch me or talk to me before I swim." And I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had known that. So as a coach, you have to kind of know what each kid likes. But I do try, when they walk out, I try to see, who's ready to go. And I try to predict, I can see if you have, deer in headlights, or if you're trying to force being loose, or if you're just in the zone and present, 100% present. And it's kind of fun to see. I love watching people behind the blocks. That's just super exciting for me, because I know when they're going to kill it. And if I know them, and I know when they're, just a little bit scared.
Spoken like a true veteran right there. You can pick them out.
That's right. I try anyway.
I love it. Cyndi, thank you so much for sharing your, words of wisdom and, just kind of reconnecting with the swimming world while we're kind of in this little pause right now, as you said. And it's been an absolute blast getting to even know you more, even though I feel like we've gotten to know each other so much. And I just want to thank you for being my first guest on Behind the Blocks.
Well, thank you, Kaitlin. It is my honor to be here, and I really appreciate you asking me. And it's just been so much fun to get to know you and to work with you, because, we share the same values. And we want to have fun, and we want to, whatever we're doing, we're going to have fun doing it. So, and we're going to be positive.
Thank you so much, Cyndi.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
And that's our show for this week. Thanks again to Cyndi Gallagher for being my first guest on Behind the Blocks. I'm so excited to have reigning NCAA Women's Swimmer of the Year, Beta Nelson, as my next special guest. Thanks again to our sponsors, Highland Earache Drops. Please visit them on highlands.com/ear. Don't forget to follow and share on social media at Kaitlin Sandeno and Wisp Sports. And you'll find the show notes to each episode on wispsports.com. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. So until then, thanks for listening and helping us turn up the volume on women's sports.